number 2 of day 2. Bryce, Frodan, take it away.
All right, let's do it again. Back-to-back Frodan and Bryce games. Welcome, everybody, to Game 2, Lobby B of Day 2 of the North American Regional Finals. As a reminder, after today, after just 5 more games, half of these players today, 8 of them, will be left behind, while 8 play on for a spot in the World Champion and the opportunity to call themselves the North American Champion. And Goobums comes in as a player without that title, but effectively with one, as he was the #1 power-ranked player from Set 6, and that's the totality of his performances, has come into Day 2 with a bang with that 8 points in that first place finish.
Yeah, and that is not a fluke. As we take a look really fast, electric overload, so I would not expect to see a lot of Deja played in this lobby, which is harmful to some of the AP players, Ramblin in particular. But continuing the thread on Goobums, look, there are a lot of players in TFT that you can describe as solid or clean. They make very few mistakes. They're really good at playing best board, especially early and consistently throughout the game. And then there's some other players that are flashy, that are out-positioning you, that are out-microing you, that are doing really creative things during their roll downs. And I think that what makes Goobums so special is all of these descriptions apply to him when he's in form. Now, he's rarely in form because it takes an unbelievable amount of preparation to get there. He's only ever been at that form one time. It was last year's regionals and world championships. And now I think we are approaching the second time. I think he has reached that form again for this tournament, which makes him the favorite in my eyes.
Goobums tends to approach TFT holistically, and not many players do. Contrasting with somebody like Milk. Milk wants to learn one line. He wants to be consistent on it, and he wants to be able to go as deep as humanly possible to master every area of it. And while that's not to say Goobums doesn't master lines, but he wants to learn every line, and he wants to learn all the outs and all the crazy things that he can do. So, for example, would he take something like Rich Get Richer and play for a grease strategy? Would he take Sunfire Board, play for a more tempo-oriented strategy? Or does he take Loot Master and kind of thread the line, but also play a lot more of a narrow path? He's capable of it all, and that's what makes him such a deadly player.
It is, and he's making really sound, thoughtful decisions throughout the game, especially in this stage. He winds up getting 2 Gnars dropped from a box. He winds up having a Gnar 2 available to him. He slams the Thieves' Gloves for the Gnar, which is going to give him the generically strongest board. And this is a board that I think a lot of people wouldn't play here. I think a lot of people would lean in towards like playing Dragon Mancers, for example, but I think this is really thoughtfully done, where he's playing just a combination of good units, including Talia, an underrated source of damage, especially in the early game.
Absolutely, and Goobums also had to make a really tough decision. He had the Kaisa and the Talia, and he also had a Zac, but he also had a pair of Gnar and a Gnar 2 in the shop. I think a lot of people would think Lagoon Start. Everyone says Lagoon Start's so good. Get your econ going. Hey, by the way, you have Sunfire Board. Why not play into it? Goobums recognizes that with that Thieves Gloves, Gnar is going to be one of the best units to play around early. And even if it doesn't pay off, right, because he's still level 3, he has that solid game plan. Now, I don't know if that's going to pay off for him because there's so much TFT left to be played, but pay close attention to some of these very small, seemingly innocuous decisions that can pay off huge dividends or blow up in their face.
Yeah, this is what makes TFT such a special game, and it's hard on broadcast, quite frankly, to really get into the analysis. You need to watch someone's entire Stage 1 and Stage 2 to really talk about their priorities and what it says about them. We do our best to bring those stories to life, but if you get a chance to really watch some of these great players in full, go back and rewatch their games. You can watch these Stage 1, 2, 3 decisions 4 or 5 times and still be gleaning new information about it. That's why we love this game and why Dan and I stay up till 2 a.m. every day just studying, because it's just too much fun and you can never go deep enough in teamfight tactics.
Agreed, agreed. Although Goobums is kind of a rat. He actually publishes his VODs right after the tournament, so you got to get it in while you can, trying to pump up that Goobums viewership as we take a look at the fight with another player who looks at the game holistically, but kind of takes a little bit of a more narrow path because he likes to play AP. It's Ramblin. With a better together start, looks like he's leaning towards probably playing some of a more Seraphine-oriented composition. But Ramblin can do a lot of things within the AP tree. I think a lot of people hear that and they think, wow, how is he wide and open? It's just the way he navigates all his options, and his first yesterday came off of the AD tree where he started off trying to play AP. So that is what makes Ramblin as strong as he is, because he has that ability to fluidly transition between lines if he sees that opening.
Yeah, he really, really does. He both bridges the trees well within the AP line, and he's able to take care of business if he winds up getting pushed towards AD. He plays the game the way Mort Dog intended it. Take what you get and roll roll with it. It is a beautiful thing to behold. Joining Prestivant, a player that many people thought of as a meme, quite frankly, until this tournament, struggling a lot throughout set 6 and set 7 in tournaments, but he has been really solid.
Oh, no.
Maybe the most consistent performer going up against his teammate Milk, and he's just got a really solid board playing around that swift shot line.
Yeah, Milk has the battle mage of the Karma too, ready to go to town and delete that front line very quickly. And look at this. I was talking to Milk a little bit beforehand about playing around rod starts and utilizing Guardians. May be able to get that rolling, but the sad thing is that it feels like overall Milk's spot here hasn't been streaking despite the fact that he has 2-star Karma and Guardians. It's a little bit on the surprising side for me. I wonder what kind of boards he's been going up against, because you saw Precedent and other players have really strong boards.
Yeah, I would not expect Milk to be at 84 HP there. Taking stock of our augments for the first time. See, an interesting mix. We've got a Tome for Precedent, which turned into Swift Shot Emblem. Rainplosion is opting into that trade sector. We'll have to see what she is leaning. A couple Sunfire boards, a Thrill of the Hunt for Burtosaurus, and Soju with the most directionally oriented comp with that Jade Heart. We basically can guarantee he is in the vertical Jade line. The combination, the question is whether he's going all the way up in Jades or whether or not he's going to be playing some of those Whisper units, which is what I would expect him to lean towards.
We didn't even cover the fact that Precedent took Tome, by the way. Kind of a risky pick to start things off. Not a lot of players would lean that way, but I'm very curious how he landed that spot. Speaking of the spots, let's check in with Burtosaurus, playing kind of a normal TFT board in the sense that there's no real direct synergies, just a couple of bruisers, a couple of warriors for DPS, keeping himself wide open. And that's what makes him special. It's a very unimpressive board on paper, but that is one of the few boards that we'll actually see do that, or rather, it's one of the few players to do that. Burt is staying open even into the mid game.
Yeah, when I asked all the players coming to this tournament about their game plan, almost all of them were talking about that they thought this meta suited itself well towards committing early in the game. Do what Soju did, grab a strong augment that goes in a direction, play towards that direction efficiently. And Burt is one of the only people who said the exact opposite of that. He said, I really want to make decisions that allow me to play wide, play strong boards early, preserve HP, and then figure out what I'm playing later, both based on what I'm hitting, and also just playing around what the lobby is playing, which gives him two things. One, it means that he can move into the less contested lines, and therefore he is less likely to get more dogged. And two, and equally importantly, he can play that chess match of TFT where he can pick not just what is strong, what he's hitting, but also what's strong for the lobby, and there is a Shio Yu early in stage 2.
How do you squeeze it in? What do you give up? Do you play 5 Jade by playing this 1-star Karma and drop the bruisers? It's just a little awkward. Now, make no mistake, this is a great pickup. And Bert's even mixing and matching and thinking about what his board looks like. And I think I agree with playing Shio Yu, because ultimately that is just a strong unit that people aren't able to account for at this stage of the game. And also, oh wow, he's going up against Milk, who is full open at this point, trying to 5 loss, which is not the way Milk wants to play, but I mean, hell, that's the most comfortable spot you can be in for him.
Yeah, Milk has been, probably the historically best loss streak player in North American history. Some of his big tournament runs have come from playing on the Razor's Edge, getting really low in HP, and rubber banding back. I think this meta in general doesn't suit itself towards that, because there are very few lines that rubber band that well, because there's so many different matchups you have to account for. There's very few things that just get so strong off of loss streak that they can win out. But if anyone can pull it off, it is Milk, and he needs it. This is a less forgiving format today. Yesterday we cut a third of the field. Today we're cutting half. So we have to be worried about Milk if he were to have bought 2 finishes in the first 2 games.
Game 1, Soju and Milk holding hands 7-8. Game 2, Milk and Soju both on the Jade line. Trouble in Paradise?
Yeah, potentially Trouble in Paradise. There is, Battle Mage plus that Death Cap, so maybe there's another direction. We haven't seen what Nomzi is yet, I believe, so maybe he's open to that, although I can't say I've seen him play that. Wow, that Duplicator is so big, especially if you're on the Jade line, because it plays around not 1 but 2 dragons, so an enormous amount of potential power spiking if you're going to roll on 7, so it's a potentially very big hit for Delicious Milk in this game. Also worth noting that Goobums was, I assume, also a full loss streaker down at 66, and Burt our only win streaker up at 100.
Okay, Goobos went to overtime against Krugs. It's a little bit of a panic moment, but we couldn't see the board, so it's all good. Burt going to keep that streak, which, by the way, with that shield you pick up, I wonder if Burt is also pushed towards Jade. If 3 players are playing Jade, that's where I think the comp really starts to fall apart. I think Jade is still really solid to flex run, whether we choose to play the Whispers package, you play vertical Jade, or even put it as part of something else, right? Some people play like Jade Acel. Totally fine, but when so many people contest it, it's going to be a little bit tricky for Milk.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be tricky for Milk, but slamming that Titans with this itemization, I agree it's the correct decision. I don't know what other options he had going up against Ramblin, who has better together with a Zeeks, a Vow, and a Locket already, so he's getting so much value from that augment. Seems like Ramblin is very clearly going towards that Seraphine Graves composition, and that's a line in which he is extremely comfortable. Ramblin in an excellent position to be able to top 4 this game.
Ooh, when I started to see Karma really deal with some big damage, though, see that front line, all of a sudden, I kind of expected Ramblin to be able to win this fight, but Milk ends up getting a crucial victory, which should help build some of his confidence going to level 6. Let's see a 3-2 augment. Band of Thieves is generically very strong, but I know Milk loves Pandora's items.
Yeah, I think Pandora's items is one of the top 5 strongest silver augments. The ability to guarantee that you're making consistently good slams throughout the stage means that you're going to be able to keep your item power while not having to sacrifice it in the late game, because you can play towards the items that you really want to get later on as well. And you don't even have to worry about HP situation on Carousel, because you can just grab the highest value item, and then it can recombines into something else, and you can use it later. He's really thinking about this augment decision a lot. I think this is such a close call between the Band of Thieves and the Pandora's items. Ultimately goes with the Pandora's items.
Yeah, and I think I agree with this, because what it allows Milk to do is, one, if he got an item that he can slam immediately, he can, so theoretically he could utilize this, but 2, it allows him to be able to get an optimal item set that gives him more flexibility than his early slams does. With that Death Cap slam, that actually kind of puts you with very few options. It's not very good for the Whisper portion of the tree, but he theoretically could re-roll that Death Cap later on and play around and go back into Whispers, giving himself more outs than he'd had before.
Yeah, and this is the strength of Milk's game, is exactly this type of decision-making. It's all rolling for him through his brain at once. Really, really nice spot. We also got a chance to look at Sully, who has a D-Claw and a Bramble Vest slammed, which is not something we see every day, at least in the current meta. Sully is kind of like almost in the vein of a Spicy Appies, loves slamming his items, just kind of building whatever he hits, so we'll have to check back in and see where he goes from there. Meanwhile, we're hopping on board with Rainplosion, who looks like she is committed onto this Kai'Sa reroll line. We saw her play this once yesterday, have an enormous amount of success. Yesterday, though, she had the Jeweled Lotus, she had a damage item. Right now, she's just got that blue buff plus the Gambler's Blade. This is the standard version where you play the Shimmer Scale and the Lagoon, so you really get your econ ramping while you are playing around it. There is a Soam in this shop. Would you ever consider pivoting at this point, or do you think we're too committed to this line?
That's a really tough question. Would I consider it? Absolutely. Do I think it's correct to pick up Soam here? I don't think we have the structure that supports Soam. We don't have mages, so if you pick up Soam, you still can't play Soam until you find Silas. And then you have Soam 1, Silas 1, which means you need to roll a lot more. And that means you're breaking apart almost your entire board, which has a bunch of 2-star non-Lagoon units that you want to include. And it becomes a little bit too much. And the reason why I know is because I played a game this morning that was exactly that. I had a Kai'Sa, I had like 4 Kaisas, I hit 2 Soams on my level 6 roll down. I was like, oh, well, I have blue buff, I should pivot. I went 7th, and just because it was just too hard to transition in that spot. So, granted, I don't think my experience lines up exactly to the level of this lobby, but I do think that Rain's making the right call. And hey, she played Kai'Sa twice and placed top 2 twice with it. I think there's merit to it.
Yeah, she's clearly a very good Kai'Sa reroll player, and I think leaning into Comfort Zone makes a lot of sense from here. She does have a lot of HP to work with, even though she's towards the bottom of the scoreboard. There's such a huge gap between Milk and her. We're also getting a chance to look at our augments for the first time. Ramblin picks up Prep. He's in such a good spot for that Seraphine Graves line. Soju, who had been really struggling on HP, is able to get a nice boost off of that. Tiny Titans as well, so some really good things happening there. Goobums looks like he does potentially want to play in that Lagoon line and gets immediately offered a Soam and a Deja. So he passes the Neela, no Soam as well. Where does he want to go from here?
I think he wants to go Seraphine based off the Zeeks. That means that he'd be contesting Ramblin, which I think is totally reasonable, and that's a 2-star Zac, so we can play the Seraphine in. But he does have the option of staying in the Lagoon line. It's just that Zeus is a little bit on the awkward side for that composition. Also a little bit of an interesting choice of backlining the Pantheon. I guess he just wants the 2 Guardians to tank and give him a bunch of HP. With the blue battery, though, kind of to your points, he still is open to playing Lagoon because you could slam blue buff. You don't have to make Morello blue battery. Or rather, with blue battery, you don't even have to kill blue buff. So you have Shojin or other options. You can just go triple damage. And so actually, you know what? Goobumps has set himself up to tread the lines. But he doesn't have much HP to work with, so he doesn't have much time. Can he make up his mind fast enough? Yeah,
I mean, the more I look at this spot, the more it feels like a very clear Seraphine commit to me, and the more it looks like a very clear bottom 4 to me. And this is the problem with playing from behind in the meta, and why most players, and Goobums including, would greatly prefer to be playing from a head tempo. He wasn't able to get the start to do that. Obviously capable of it if he gets the right items and unit combinations, but that just wasn't meant to be. Joining Milk, again, we see him on level 7. He has rolled down. He does have 2 copies of this Siphon, plus he has a duplicator. Electing not to use it, he's going to save it for a re-roll down on 4-1, and I would expect to see him use it at that stage.
This is such a tough spot because I know a lot of people would advocate to play 6 Whispers from here as a mid-game option. Just have to find Zyra. You have the Silas already. But Milk is so poor. I mean, poor doesn't even begin to describe it. Not to mention his itemization situation. He's holding an extra tier and a cloak on his Kaisa and his Zac. That's intentional because he doesn't want to reroll those items. He's in a really, really awkward spot, to say the least, right now. He really needs to win this fight, but also secretly wants to lose by fewest units as possible so he can get a little bit of gold back from his loss streak. It doesn't seem like that's going to be happening here because this Wukong too, solid unit, but very much has fallen off as Bird takes another loss in this stage. What started off to be a really good spot for Bird, now he's down to 64.
Yeah, Milk just needs us to watch all of his fights. We watched him on 3-1. He took a nice fight win. We leave him. He gets bodied a few times. He come back and he gets a fight win. Meanwhile, we are looking at Bert in the lower right-hand corner. Looks like he's actually already starting to roll, recognizing that he's on such a contested tree. So many people are considering this Soy Fin line right now. So, look, you're going to have your have and your have-nots for sure. Not everyone is going to hit the board they are looking for. Someone is going to flame out early in the stage, which is not bad news for someone like Goobums, who has a reasonable prospect of getting his board online, even though it is contested with Ramblin. Ramblin, meanwhile, just wants Goobums to die so he can be in an uncontested spot. The Pantheon, too, is such a big hit here. Pretty good item selection as well over there for Delicious Milk, so he's got a lot of perspective power here once he uses his duplicator on this Siphon.
And then look at all the items that rerolled as well. He had tiers and cloaks and rods, now transformed to sword, bow, glove, and chain, which is very close to ideal. He goes for the Nico. And this is the flexibility that's required in order to master the Jade Soyfin line that it looks like Milk is putting on display. Now the question is he going to make another item here off the sword, bow, vest combination? A lot of people like Edge of Night. Maybe he can go for even more damage amplification items. But it seems like he's just going to reroll all of these items. Oh, he makes the Titans. But he's going to reroll the Death Cap as we talked about, but not keep a sword, which is kind of interesting because I know a lot of people love holding on to swords for this comp.
Yeah, swords are so valuable for this composition. If he had a Shio Yu, then I think he probably would hold on to the sword. He actually does, in the end, make that decision, and that's the thing. Milk is methodically making his decisions this turn, right? We're talking about what are all the different decisions. He's like, hey, I can make these in order. I have a lot of time to figure out which of my items I want to hold and which of my items I want to reroll, and that's just very clean decision making. Unfortunately, he did reroll. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I would say he found Big Friend. That's a huge augment for Silver for this composition. Thrill is also worth considering, given that he doesn't have that much healing. But both are really good. Big Friend with the Jade stacking the heals is surprisingly one of the best performing augments data-wise in this composition. But Thrill is also really good, but it's only Thrill 1, so just a few hit points is not that impactful.
Oh!
And Milk makes the right choice, finds a Shio Yu. Everything is coming up, Milk Guy.
Jeffrey Pan, he's our man. Mortog apparently does like this guy because these are some really, really nice hits in early stage 4. He did not get a great reroll. He rerolled that Death Cap because he doesn't have any AP item holders, and it rerolls into an Archangel Staff, so definitely not what he's looking for. I expected him to maybe take one more rip at a reroll there. I would also expect him to put this sword on Shio Yu for the exact same reason he held it last round, right? Playing around swords in this composition is very strong. I'd want to see him keep that item.
He agrees. even a small case to keep the bow as well, given that Xiaoyu could also use an assortment of bow items. You're looking at Titans, you're looking at Rage Blade, even, you know, RFC, Last Whisper is less important when you have Whispers in your comp, but the point is to say that Xiaoyu can actually use a ton of them. Looks like he's going to reroll it. And also, this Archangel Staff, while not suboptimal, I do want to say that if you have like a Jace 2, let's say you roll down, you're in this spot, that is a unit that can hold it. And that's what makes the line so strong. You have many different options.
Yeah, I think he rolled into a Spark, so apparently that item just like really wants to be an AP-oriented item.
AP?
Yes, oh Milk, you don't want this? How about this version of an AP item instead? Meanwhile, we're on board with Sully, who is going for a massive board transition here. He's sold everything. This is a really interesting decision from Sully. He is going 8 on 4-3, not 4-2. He's going 8 with very little gold to work with. He's got a Xayah 1. He's got an Itis 1. Look, this is not how you play Xayah, point blank. The reason why the stats on Xayah were so good yesterday is because it was constantly being played from ahead, from tempo, really struggling to get his items in there. He's going to be able to get this Bramble and this Declaw onto the Itis about 10 seconds into the fight. I am really worried about Sully's game here. I think we're looking at a free fall situation.
I mean, it kind of depends if other players are not having strong boards, but Ramblin has this better together prep Seraphine Graves composition, finally killing 1 unit. We've killed 1 unit thus far.
It's okay, the Itis is still alive, Dan.
It's just looking really bad. Wait, I think I spoke too soon. Now we've killed 1 unit. All right, it's a 6-0. We take those.
Yeah, this is a really, really tough spot for Sully. He's low on gold. He only has the Itis 1, no pair, only the Xayah 1, no pair, so I think it's going to be very tough. Taking a look at the augments, everyone opting into combat power augments with the exception of Sully, who had that future sight, as well as Ray Implosion grabbing a Thieves' Gloves for herself. Prestiman actually grabs a Swift Shot Heart to go with his Swift Shot emblem for earlier, so we know he is also interested in playing Xayah.
Yeah, that's right. I think a lot of people think Swift Shot Emblem or Swift Shot Start, oh, I should play Yone. Don't forget, Xayah can scale really well with attack speed. In fact, if you have 4 to 5 Swift Shot, it actually eliminates the crucial need for Ginsu's Rage Blade that people almost associate with the Xayah. If you make Rage Blade, it's like, oh, this is like a Xayah item. But if you have enough attack speed from the 5 Swift Shot, maybe that's a way to navigate around it.
Yeah, meanwhile, we're joining Soju for the first time, who has played a very good tempo-oriented game, has maintained a lot of HP. The problem is, it looks like he wants to play the same line as the entire lobby, and those units are going to be really hard to come by at this stage. So here is the opportunity for Soju to show off his potential flexibility. I see him having ASOL here. Maybe he could think about getting that onto his board.
Oh, 9 Jade! I was wondering if we were going to sneak that in. And 9 Jade gives you a ton of stats. The problem is the quality of your units can drop off very significantly after Xiaoyu and Soraka and Jax. You basically have to play a bunch of that weak stuff. However, in a matchup like this, which tries to go long, 9 Jade actually has the advantage if your unit quality is good enough, and you can see exactly why that is. Soju with the Rage Blade was an excellent slam, and look at it, his near 1-star Jade board able to beat the Seraphine Graves composition. This is excellent recognition from Soju of what he needs to do if his main game plan isn't around.
Yeah, and also recognition that this is in many ways a board check. 9 Jade is such a disgusting amount of sustain that if your opponent does not have anti-heal, which I believe Ramblin did not, aside from, you know, Pantheon applying a little bit of it, then you really do get a ton of value over the course of a long fight on this 9 Jade line. So anytime he goes against someone with anti-heal, I'm a little bit afraid for this current board quality, but anytime he goes against someone who does not, I think Soju's in business, and I think that this is exactly where Soju signs. His units are contested. It's not easy to figure out what to do. He's playing the best board he can for the time with transition in mind on his bench.
I was worried that Soju wouldn't be able to get the positioning, but with a last-second move, seems like he's still dialed in. All he has to do is dodge Zephyr.
And he did.
And he did. And Xiaoju's able to go to the backline, straight to the Xayah. That's not what Sully wanted. Does manage to get 3 items onto the Xayah, but the Jade stance able to clean up. And now here comes Xiaoyu, and honestly, I feel like Soju can stop rolling. Exactly. He sold his Shyvana. I think you can even get rid of these Jaces. You can start to eco back up a little bit, although I do think he's probably considering, look, 9 Jade is good right now. I maybe want to replace that Wukong and maybe that Karma and place better units. So on second thought, I think Soju's making the right call there. Well done.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Meanwhile, Goobum's showing his fluidity, right? You were making fun of this tree, Dan. You said there's no flex to be had in this tree, and Goobum's showing you there's at least a little bit of flex. If you hit an Asol on level 7, then you can find your way into the board. So this is the non-traditional version of it. Asol is the primary carry here, not Graves.
Yeah, there's no Graves to be found. I think his HP count is also indicative of how this game is going. This board, this variation, is your top end. And when you're trying to skip your mid parts of the game, you destabilize your board. That Graves is really strong into certain matchups that Aurelion Sol is going to have trouble dealing, right? Asol can't clean up that front line nearly as much, so your units might be stuck there for a long time, while Graves is able to go past. But the trade-off is, if no one can kill this Aurelion Sol, it theoretically can kill everything in the game. So this is a good stall comp and a way for maybe Gumos to climb back if the matchups are good, and also he's not going to get targeted by things like that Zephyr and Future Sight.
Yeah, a fairly decent reforge here, right? Doesn't want that Infinity Edge, and he goes for it. He's able to get another Zeke's to go, and he has a Gargoyle, so this front line's going to stand up a little bit longer. This is the matchup he's hoping to see. This is one of the other very weak boards in this lobby. Sully has not gotten a lot stronger, still on Idis 1, still on Xayah 1. If there is a board that Goom is capable of beating, it's this one, and they are very much fighting for that bottom placement. Both players desperately trying to avoid that 8th place.
Oh no, the Black Hole's targeting the Xayah in the back! All that damage is gone, and Sully takes another major loss. And I think this Future Sight is just not working out. I think in this case, probably should have targeted something like the Zac front line, increase the Swift Shot range, and also get even more AoE onto his opponents. I think just a little bit too slow. Sully feels a little bit outmatched in this lobby right now. Yeah,
and this is exactly what we said. I really would have to have seen the exact spot he got into, but I think it was the prospect of Sully being able to do well in this spot from a 4-3 roll down was basically 0%. So tough position to be in this game. Just trying to slam his items, play tempo, do anything he can to avoid this 8th place. We are seeing his matchup because of the Future Sight going up against Milk, who has that incredibly strong iteration of the Soyfin composition, all of the key units upgraded at 2-star. We see a last-second reposition. Is it going to hit? We're getting the Pantheon at least. Or is it the Jade statue? Okay.
It was 50-50. It did end up hitting on the Pantheon, which is really nice. A good Hecarim cast, able to at least stall for a little bit longer, but Milk is online. He's got 2-star dragons. He's got Big Friend Battle Mage, so 2 strong combat augments. Utilize that Pandora's for really strong itemization. This is dead Sully, I think. There's just nothing he can really do. Milk Guy able to bring his way back, and he is streaking. Sully in 8th, uncontested. Prestivan holds on while Burt takes another loss. All of a sudden, the 7-8 Milk Soju is now 2 and 3, pushing Rainplosion, who is the gatekeeper to stop the reverse 1-2.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten a chance to look at Rainplosion's board forever. We know she's rerolling Kai'Sa. She's level 8. She's 73 HP, so we can assume that she hit that Kai'Sa very early and has been able to out-tempo this lobby, staying ahead of curve. Meanwhile, Prestivan actually won that fight with 7 out of 8 units on his board against Ramblin's pretty strong iteration of the Seraphine Graves composition. And exactly like you called out, when you can get into this full vertical version of the Swift Shot, you don't necessarily need the Rage Blade. P-God is doing his best to make this work with a suboptimal situation.
Yeah, the Hecarim angle is not perfect, but almost gets it done. Just doesn't tag the Zeri in the back. Oh my god, that Zippy will not be denied. Zeri keeps saying stay away and able to put enough pressure onto that backline and Preston. Oh no! They thrill the hunt! That is a thrill diff. Is Preston dead?
Not quite.
Barely living.
1 HP and a dream left for Prestivan as we head into our stage 5 carousel.
Does he go for a Giant Slayer or Hodge onto Xayah, trying to get more damage amplification? I think his Xayah just lacks a little bit of oomph. Yeah, she's got some solid stuff, but I think Prestivan is playing for the best possible placement, in which, in this case, it looks like he's targeting a 5th.
Yeah, it feels like we have very clear separation here. We've got 4 players in the top 4, all with pretty strong iterations of their board. We haven't gotten a chance to see Rain's board state. She's probably the favorite right now to win this lobby. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Goobums has been able to somewhat duct tape this together. If he could get a 5th in this game, it would be amazing. Burt has really been struggling so far, and is, from an early strong position, hasn't quite figured it out, has been falling in HP, and Prestivan on 1 HP and a dream. If Prestivan can eke out a 6th or 5th place here, he'll consider that job well done.
I think I would have liked Precedent to consider dropping to 4 split shots. 4 split shots still very effective, but also could squeeze in Jace. Oh, he already has a Jace on his board. I apologize. I thought for whatever reason it was the Zippy that was holding tank items, but instead Zippy's going to move to the back. So in that case, Precedent, he is dialed in. He's got everything good to go. Going up against Goobums, this could determine who gets 7th place.
Yeah, this is the matchup he's hoping to see here. He kind of takes this game into his own hands. Going up against Goobums, the front line is already down. That Zai with that Giant Slayer is being able to do a lot more work. The Zippy's into the back line, onto the Aurelion Soul. The black holes are out in this fight. Zippy is disrupting that back line. Here comes another black hole, but it is not ascended yet, and the A Soul is down. Goobums is going to barely live in this situation. Burt takes another loss. Precedent's 5th place very much within reach. Ramblin actually takes another loss down at 19. Theoretically could wind up bot 4ing from this position.
Oh man, there's so many impactful fights. I wish we had a 4x4 screen right now to see everybody's POV, simply because Burt and Goobums and Preston on the chopping block. Rampant is free falling, and we can't really see why. We did see a fight that was similar to a board, right? Goobums and Rampant both playing the Seraphine flex comp. But Preston able to get that win because it's a really good matchup. I think a lot of people really underestimate Xayah specifically into Seraphine.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why we're seeing Xayah emerge in the meta. It feels like there's so much Seraphine Graves played that it becomes stronger as a result of that. And wow, we are looking at Rain's board for the first time. Are you kidding me? She's got the Volibear 3-star, she's got the Zac 3-star, and she's got the Kai'Sa 3-star with what most people consider to be BIS items. Making use of that trade sector, hitting and hitting hard is Rainplosion in this game.
And Preston can't lose by any units. He has to win this fight. Oh, but this Kai'Sa is going to clean up a lot. It comes down to potentially this second title burst. But HP counts is good enough, and that was huge. Preston was able to play for a 6th. And we'll see if that point ends up making a difference maker while Burt takes an unfortunate 7th place. It just looks like he never really got anything going.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see Ramblin has been struggling so much. It feels like he's got the conditions that you would want. He's got the good augments with the better together and making use of that on 3 items. He's got the preparation and he's got Cyber Shell. He's getting a little bit of extra prep stacks here. Maybe that's the issue, that he's kind of under prepped on some of his core units, but he's really been struggling. Maybe it's matchmaking RNG. He gets an extra item component here. He is stuck on Seraphine 1. That's definitely not helping his situation.
Yeah, I think I have to kind of watch it in motion a couple times to see what is happening, but it just looks like he is a little bit under, like doesn't have enough upgrades. No Seraphine 2, no Pantheon 2.
Still Malphite on his board.
Still a Malphite on his boards for the Lagoon. It's a little bit awkward.
It is, and it's going to come down to this fight. You see Ramblin's pool. He has Soju and Rainplosion in his pool. Not what he's hoping to see. 2 of the very strong boards. Meanwhile, Goobums from 28 HP, I think it was, or 35 HP roughly in the later parts of Stage 3, has somehow gotten to a 5th place situation. This is not the board Ramblin's hoping to go up against. We saw how absurdly strong Rain is, but it is against her Ghost, so maybe that'll make a difference.
Yeah, hopefully he can outlast. I mean, if anything, maybe Ramblin's praying Goobums takes a nastier loss. This Volibear, about to bite the dust. Graves looks unchallenged right now, and that's the big key, whether or not Graves can stay alive. Bard not going to be able to get the cast off, but Graves is down, and Ramblin is dead. There's just no damage left to contest this Kai'Sa. Rain is way too strong, and the question is whether or not Goobums lost. Goobums survives, so that's a 5th place for Ramblin. And that's not what he's looking for right now. But that's okay. 5th is still fine. A decent result relative to where he started off. Take a look at Goobums with another top 4 performance. And from a spot that looked conditional, whether or not this ASO could pop off, and Goobums barely hung on. And honestly, this is a great top 4.
This is an outstanding top 4. Goobums from his situation and Ramblin from his situation. If you screenshot them on 3-6, you say Ramblin goes top 3 most of the time, Goobums goes bot 2 most of the time. Look, he did high roll, right? He hit this Aurelion Soul. It's the single strongest carry in the game, and that matters. But what really matters is that Goobums knew exactly how to build a board around it to somehow, some way magic his way into a top 4. I don't care who wins this game. Goobums played the best team fight tactics.
There it is, the classic Bryce moment. We'll see. There's still some TFT left to be played to maybe impress Emperor Bryce Blum and give him the thumbs up of approval, as they do have Milk Guy with crushing the front line, showing you why Big Friend is one of the nuttiest augments that you can get in this composition. How are you supposed to deal with this? There's so much damage reduction. They scale, they heal, they're able to charge backline. And did I tell you that they scale? Did I tell you that they heal? They keep doing that over and over.
Yeah, they do. Meanwhile, Soju goes out in third place. Not a bad bounce back game for him. Milk and Soju struggling game one, and they are having a much better performance overall here, and we're going to get to see a little bit of a chess match. We've got a meaningful amount of HP to work with on both sides. What I don't know, quite frankly, is if Milk's board has the tools to theoretically deal with the unbelievable amount of strength that is on Rainplosion's side.
I think an underrated or important unit that might actually be impactful is Lee Sin. If you can kick units away like the Dragons install, you can see it's going to aim for the Xiaoyu.
There you go.
And that's just an extra 2-3 seconds to walk with the fight. And he's now taunted by the Rakan. It's just all deflecting away from the Kaisa. As long as you can stall from it, it's good to go. Siphon rampages away from it. And now gets chance for the full 12 missile tidal burst. Now we enter the last segment of the fight, whether or not the Siphon can get the bite in time.
Oh, it's so close.
And the Siphon does fall, but Xiaoyu has been ramping up. The Tempered Fate from the Bard from Milk's side, not good enough. And the overtime cast, not going to get it done.
Oh my God.
The second one does, and you can see kind of how those pieces are really important. That 1K from the Lee Sin can make a profound difference with how the fight plays out.
Yeah, meaningful amount of fight RNG went Rain's way there. The Siphon was a, sometimes it's Challenger Siphon. In fact, when it's the opponent's Siphon, it's always Challenger Siphon. When it's your Siphon, it is always the opposite. So this was a hard-stuck Iron Siphon dashing away from this Kaisa, giving it infinite time to do its DPS in the fight, and it was still such a close fight here. I would like to see how the repositioning chess match goes. We also have to pay attention to that Thieves Gloves on that Volibear 3. That could make a difference as well.
You're totally right. There is some variance in that, but you only can worry about what you can control, and by separating Lee Sin and Rakan this way and picking the right corner. Bottom right is often what you want because it's only 2 units that can target Kaisa over 3. It's the small thing that Rain is doing, but she has not repositioned. Did Milk find a way to navigate around it? We know Milk's one of the best positioners in the lobby. He's slanting far right side, trying to focus onto the Zac. Rain caught wind of it by having the stone plate in front of it. Now let's see whether or not the Siphon Xiu can crack in time before this Kaisa can whittle it away. But I see that Siphon is going to get targeted down, and this fight went so much worse somehow for Milk. And I think Rainplosion has really put Milk in a tough position because that fight went disastrously. Milk has only 1 chance left.
Yeah, Milk down on 1 life. Meanwhile, Rain at 63 HP and gaining with the Soraka. Plus, she has some potential power. Soraka 2, Bard 2, Yasuo 2, all yet to be hit. She gets a big Thieves Gloves roll on a Chalice of Power plus a Death Cap for this Volibear 3. And look, that fight was much tougher for Milk because he got his carries directly in the face of the Kaisa, and it just didn't work out. There was too much damage on them early. He lost the Xiaoyu and the Siphon very early in that fight relative to the first fight. So we'll see the repositioning from Milk. Is Rain going to go for a last second swap? She's not, so Milk is going to get further away, which is, I think, what he wants, but is it enough to actually swing the matchup?
Lee Sin, where's he going to kick? He's aiming to Xiaoyu one more time. Xiaoyu goes in the back line, has to take the long way around. And with the additional Rakan going in, just pushing it further back. A big Tempered Fate coming out from Rainplosion's Bard, able to lock down the back line. And Xiaoyu barely hanging in, doesn't end up going down. So it's now just Siphon. Siphon, where are you going? That's the wrong way. Rainplosion is going to crush this lobby once more with another Kaisa Dragon Mancer carry. And that's another win for Rainplosion.
Wow, all she does is win lobbies in big tournaments time after time. She